Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
It's our tradition to go around the room before we hear from our speaker, say our names. If I may, I'll begin. My name is Roy.
I'm Brad.
My name is Rich. My name is Joe. My name is Francisco.
My name is Michael.
My name is Claudia.
My name is Ruben.
Scott. I'm David.
Rob. My name is David.
My name is Matthew.
Larry.
My name is Ray.
My name is Seamus.
Jack.
Tony.
My name is Cass.
Ricardo.
Josh.
My name is Dal.
Dan.
Grisha.
Kevin. Peter. Corey.
I'm Hal.
My name is Joe.
I'm Richard.
John. So our speaker today is Jon Bernie, who is a contemporary spiritual teacher focused on the unfolding of natural wakefulness, the already enlightened basic state that lies at the core of human experience. He has 4 decades of practice and study in the contemplative traditions of Soto Zen, Theravada insight meditation, and Advaita Vedanta. In addition to his work as a spiritual teacher, Jon is also an experienced healer and teacher of somatic embodiment via his extensive training in the Alexander technique. He has been in private practice since 1981. Jon leads classes, intensives, and retreats in the San Francisco Bay Area and nationally. Welcome, Jon.
Thank you. Good to be back. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Some of you have met me before and know me, and others haven't met before. So thank you for coming and being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. My hearing's not very good either. So I was just reflecting on, I think it was back when I got back from living at Tassajara as a monk. It's probably 1979. Maybe 1980, I can't remember, but back then, I don't know if we started it beforehand, but Tommy Dorsey, who became Issan Dorsey, some of you may have known him. He founded the Hartford Street Zen Center. And another good friend, Bill Graham, who was I think he was the founding Mother Superior of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And also was a teacher of transcendental meditation, led retreats and so forth. The 3 of us founded the first gay Buddhist group, I think in the world, I don't know, but we had never heard of anything like that before. And we started having, it was called Maitri. I think it was called Maitri, wasn't it? Anybody remember those meetings? Anyway, we used to meet at we had meetings at the San Francisco Zen Center Guest House, which was a Victorian, diagonally across from Zen Center, just a couple of, I think, was it past the park? I don't remember where. I think it was right next to where the greengrocer was, and now there's a restaurant there. And we had all kinds of people come and talk there, like Allen Ginsberg. His talk was entitled Cocksucking in Dharma. He didn't want it recorded, but I was Richard Baker Roshi's assistant at the time, and I said, well, Richard wants to hear it because they were friends. And so he said, okay, that's okay. So I recorded it, and I made a copy for myself. I still have it. It's pretty amazing. But, you know, the reason I'm bringing it up is really we really questioned back then whether to call it gay, Buddhist, whatever, fruit. Because we thought, you know, so much of Buddhism and spiritual practice is really about becoming free of being identified. Now, obviously, because of what we've been through and who we are and how difficult it is for most of us, it's so important to have healthy identity and community and support. And I've always been a big supporter of wanting to be available in the gay community as a meditation teacher and spiritual teacher. And but it was really an interesting kind of question that we just allowed. You know, what is this identity? What are we really identifying with? Some of you may have heard this story. And when I moved back I left Tassajara because I was in love with. I'm getting emotional now. A man named Gerard and we Baker Roshi wanted us to live at Green Gulch together as the first openly gay couple in the history of Zen Center. I said, no way. He came down and visited me at Tassajara when I was there, and back then I was in the dorm. I don't know how it is down there, but there are these teeny little rooms above the where we would have the summer guests eat dinner. And but in the monastery time, it was these tiny little, basically almost cells that were your room. And I remember Gerard came down and stayed with me there during some work period that we had down there. And friends of mine said, "So is he your brother?" Because they couldn't understand why he was sleeping in my room with me. I was still in the closet then. When I came out and was more open, there were people there who wouldn't even look at me. And I was so shocked that people who were apparently spiritual and supposedly conscious were homophobic. And so, anyway, now I'm forgetting what I wanted to tell you. Sorry. Oh, man. Okay. So when Gerard and I were together, my parents lived down in Burlingame. And I'd come out when I was 16 in 1969 and was involved in the gay liberation movement, was pretty open about it in my family. And my dad was really very much a macho man. And I think it was pretty hard for him. Very hard for him. I think my mother's comment when I came out was something like, "Oh, you're just going through a phase, honey." I have to say, they never stopped loving me, which was great. But when Gerard and I were together, I decided to describe my relationship with Gerard to him this way. This is what I said. I said, Dad, Gerard and I are best friends. We love each other very much. We sleep together and have sex, but we're not gay. And he said, "Oh, good." Because he had some projection, some belief, some construct called gay, which was, God knows what the media was doing with that back then, and the negative stereotypes or whatever people believed, and I just took that away. I told the truth, and yet I took away the label. I took away that stigma at the time. right? So, again, it's just a story that I think illustrates the question, who are we, really? And I think the spiritual longing, the spiritual search, however that appears or unfolds for an individual, ultimately comes face to face with that question. And I'm sure you know, as meditators, as people practicing, that as you tune in, as you become aware, as you become more sensitive, as you become more conscious, the whole idea of what is this life, or who are we, becomes a question. Becomes the realm of, I don't really know. It's really a mystery. And it's why the spiritual quest is called mysticism. Because it's all about surrendering into the mystery of this life, fundamentally. However you find your way to that discovery. Because ultimately, whatever you believe, whatever you've been told, whatever you've read or heard, ultimately is not reality. And the spiritual journey is really about becoming completely intimate with reality. Where literally the protected construct identity of who you think you are literally dissolves. At least for a moment. And there's a sense of wakefulness or presence or connectedness or spaciousness or love, joy, peace, all those kinds of descriptions of pure, open consciousness. So whether you practice, Zazen or Vipassana meditation or visualization or mantra practices or any kind of the movement, consciousness training practices of yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, and that sort of thing. Ultimately, pranayama, breathing awareness, all of those ultimately are designed to bring you face to face with reality until you can completely open and surrender to that, which you fundamentally are. Pure, spacious awareness. And of course, sitting, meditating can be a very, for most people, including myself, essential training to really facilitate availability to opening. And whatever facilitates your opening, each individual actually has their own unique path. Regardless of whether you identify as a Buddhist practitioner or not, whether or not you have a practice or not doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter what you believe or whether you have any beliefs about it. Ultimately, the way to finding deep fulfillment is within. Why? How is that possible? Well, it's pretty simple, really. This life that you are, that we are, that everything is it. fundamentally, and to go into that, to become open to it, to surrender to it, is the way we discover it. Now, I didn't know any of this when I was 16 and had an awakening. I was very political. I was an activist. I was, had long hair and the whole thing back in the 60s and growing up around here. And I didn't know anything about meditation or spirituality. I rejected religion. I thought it was brainwashing, pretty much. And I didn't want to be sold a bunch of beliefs. I wanted to find out myself what's true. So that's the kind of challenging personality type I was. I think you have to be kind of tough to survive being gay. I don't know. It's funny when we go see movies, there's a gay character. You can always tell if they're really gay or not. Because if they're gay, they have an edge. There's a certain, you know what I mean? There's a certain something that you usually have to survive. Not easy. Being marginalized, being judged, being rejected, being thrown out of your home, being shot at by your brother or whatever. I mean, I knew people where when they told their brother, the brother shot them when they told him they were gay. And when his best friend came to visit him in the hospital and said, "Why did your brother shoot you?" He said, "I told him I was gay." He goes, "Oh, if I were your brother, I would have finished you off." Like, how do you survive that? How do you heal that trauma? Pretty hard. And yet, what we're doing here, what you're doing by facing your experience, actually is an opportunity to not only become enlightened, but to heal all of the trauma of your conditioning and your past. In fact, there is no separation between really understanding how to allow transformation to happen spiritually and healing of the personal self simultaneously. They're not really separate. Now, sometimes they're taught separately. Obviously, you go to therapy, you do body work, you work on yourself as a person, as an ego, right? Or you go and you do very traditional, focused, non-dual kinds of Shakti energy training where you're just the divine presence. Great. But ultimately, those two roads have to meet. And that's in the Zen tradition when they say you finally come off the mountaintop and you come back to the marketplace. If you know those famous ox herding pictures. That's what that really means, that ultimately it all works together. So you can use your condition, your trauma, your pain, your history, as a way of, your story even, as a way of becoming completely free of it. Completely, not as a repression of it or avoidance of it or a spiritual bypass of it, but literally as an alchemical transmutation of it. So, I'd like to offer you a very simple instruction. Just you can use it or not if you like it or if it speaks to you, but just like a little guided piece that may be helpful for you, if I may. So I would just say sit comfortably like you were going to meditate. I'm going to have some hot water. Whatever's holding on, whatever's resisting, whatever's grasping. Be the open space of awareness that lets it let go. Whatever's holding on, whatever is resisting, whatever is grasping, be the open space of awareness that lets it let go. When I moved back from Tassajara in January of 1979, or maybe, I thought, what am I going to do for work? And I thought, well, I want to do some kind of work where I could continue my spiritual practice in my work and have autonomy, because my spiritual journey was my whole life. And so I wanted to be able to go on retreats or do healing work or, all of that sort of thing. And I had a healing gift with my hands that I always had since I was young. And I had benefited greatly from lessons that I had taken in the Alexander technique. And so I decided I was accepted into a training program here in San Francisco and went through the training program and was certified to practice. And I jokingly used to say back then, the reason that I became an Alexander teacher was so that I could have Alexander teacher on my business card rather than monk. And people back then, I realized that people had a very hard time being conscious in their body. And that even, because Alexander work is very gentle, almost very light touch energy work where you're retraining movement. I worked a lot in performing arts. I grew up as a concert violinist, and I ended up becoming quite well known and busy in the performing arts world. So I had many, mostly performing artists who were clients of mine, opera singers, musicians, dancers, actors, athletes. And what I found was that, for instance, if I had somebody on the table, and people wore clothes, but I was just very gently mobilizing their hip socket, and I'd say, okay, now there's let go, and they would tighten up. And I began to realize that often people held on more when they had an instruction let go. I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And it wasn't until I hung around with an osteopath named Muriel Chapman, who was a great healer, she used to say to her clients, now let it let go. I thought, wow, that is amazing. That is brilliant. And it's absolutely clear. And I started teaching people, before I would do body work, I would sit with them, and I did what I called guided awareness, which was like a meditation training, except I didn't tell them we were meditating. So I took away the label. I thought, why have that be in the way, right? It's like kids who learn. They teach kids all kinds of stuff now. They don't even have to call it meditation, mindfulness, or used to be brain gym and all kinds of things that were really great ways of teaching people to be aware without some religious, spiritual, dogmatic like burden on it, right? Because this stuff has nothing to do with that. This is really about discovery. Like, you are in your own life every minute an explorer and a scientist. If you don't have the attitude that you're learning all the time, you're in trouble. Because the greatest suffering is to be the knower. And the greatest freedom is to be free of knowing. Free of the mind that needs to defend itself and be in control with what it knows. So people would say to me, would you teach a meditation class? Would you? And so I was invited. I think the Harvey Milk Institute, friends of mine were running that back then, asked me to teach. I started teaching meditation classes for the Harvey Milk Institute. There's a book out there that you guys put out there, Queer Dharma. I have an article in there that was published called Monk and Drag. Mm-hmm. And the publisher wouldn't let me. He fought me on that title, but I said, you can't publish it unless it's that title. And I said, he wouldn't go with the subtitle, which was, you can take yourself out of the monastery, but you can't take the monastery out of yourself. He didn't get that, but oh well. Anyway, but it was really the sense of that, the discovery, the retreat, the meditation is every moment. Not just when you're in here, or when you're on your cushion, or on the retreat, but it's every moment is this discovery, is this learning. So I tell people there are no teachers, there are only good students. Right? And we're sharing what we're learning as we go. That's how this works. And then there's a kind of, as you become less identified with who you are, there's more of an openness, and you start to feel this connectedness, which in the Buddhist tradition is called transmission of the Dharma. That isn't like, I'm going to tell you the right thing and you're going to learn it and remember it. That's not the transmission of the Dharma. The transmission of the Dharma is the absence of you and me when there's oneness. That's what real teaching is on the highest level, or the deepest level of our reality. So people started asking me, well, will you teach a retreat? And will you, and so I started teaching. I started leading retreats, and it just kind of has grown all these years, continually to this day, where we can't keep up with it anymore. There's so many requests and things around the world. But it's really, I'm learning all the time. And I hope you are too. I think one of my Alexander teachers, who was practiced into her 90s, Marjorie Barstow, she was Alexander's first certified teacher in 1932. She would put her hands on you and it was like getting enlightened instantly. It's like your whole body expanded with consciousness. It was amazing. And she didn't do anything. It was like, wow. And of course, from the Alexander point of view, your whole alignment would change, and the way you play your violin or whatever would change, or your singing. And you know what she said? And I said, boy, when I'm 90, I want to be able to say this. I'm always learning new things and becoming more sensitive. And she said that at 90. Okay? So what's important about that is to question. To question your own projections. To question your own judgments, your own beliefs. And notice and ask yourself, do I want to be holding this pain in my body? Do I want to be holding this contraction called me anymore? It's being somebody takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy to hold it together. And it's such a relief to be free of it. So, I know you probably know all this already and heard all this. I've talked enough, I think. I'm happy we have another, not quite 20 minutes before we wrap up, I guess. So I'm more than happy to take questions or interact with you and listen to what you have to say. And offer anything I can offer that might be helpful. So, if you have anything you'd like to ask, questions or anything, feel free, raise your hand, and we'll go from there. And speak up because I can't hear very well. Thanks. Hi.
Hi. You mentioned when you were at Tassajara,
Yeah.
and you told people there that you were gay.
I didn't do it yet there. I did it later when I came. I think I waited because I didn't want to be at Tassajara and say it was after I moved out of Zen Center people found out. Because then I was openly with Gerard and we were going to things and word got out.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't go and wave a flag and make an announcement, but I was being much more open about it.
But you mentioned that when the conversation did happen, that you were judged harshly and you were looked at in a manner that you...
Well, there were people that were my friends before that wouldn't look at me. And I used to go, I'm not going to mention names, but I used to go back when running was becoming very popular and a lot of us were running early in the morning. We'd go to Zazen at 4 in the morning and then we'd go at 7 or whatever out to Golden Gate Park and we'd run. And I was going with a few of the senior priests at Zen Center and they were making faggot jokes and they didn't know I was gay. And so that was very painful to have to be in the car and have to be around them and have to not be caught in that at the time. Now, a funny story was that when I was a student of Baker Roshi, for I don't know how long it was before I told him, and I was terrified to tell him. I was often terrified to tell people because I was afraid they would reject me, marginalize me, it would hurt me, and you know what I'm talking about. And maybe today's different for people, I don't know, but back in those days, you could be seriously screwed. And I was very afraid to tell him, and I finally told him, I finally got the courage, I could feel the emotion around it, to tell him. And because I had to be there, I had to be meditating, I was going to kill myself if I wasn't sitting a lot. I was crazy. My mind was a torture chamber and I was suffering, and I had to find freedom. I was a serious practitioner. And so it was a very frightening thing to do. And I finally told him, we were in Doksan, which is a formal sitting together, we're in robes and the whole thing. And I told him, and he laughed. No, he didn't laugh he actually, what he said first, he said, John, there's a number of women here, and I was in my 20s, right? I was in my early 20s. He said, there are a number of women here at Zen Center who just think you're more interested in practice than sex. And I cracked up. I thought that was really funny. And I said, well, why are they interested in me? He said, you're a man. Oh, it never occurred to me. I thought, why would a woman be attracted to me? I thought, it's not funny that I didn't even think of that. Anyway, so he was great. He was very supportive of my relationship with Gerard, and he was very open and he was great, wonderful. And to this day, even though he has a sordid past, we're still friends. And Brother David Steindl-Rast, who's a Benedictine monk, and I don't know if you know him or not, but he and I have been very close for 44 years. Very supportive of me being gay, really always hoping I would find somebody, and has met my partners and loved them and always asks about them in his emails to me. And so, there's some really pretty cool people that I've been lucky to have who were great and supportive. So I certainly wouldn't say there was some across-the-board negative trip. It was more a subtle kind of non-spoken judgment and rejection that was there. People didn't say it overtly. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? So I didn't mean to imply that. But it was obvious.
But I think you also said that it was a bit of a question to you of how would others involved in Buddhism, your colleagues, your peers, come to that conclusion.
Yeah, because I thought if anybody doesn't care, they shouldn't care. Yeah. Why would they care? I would think they're the first people that could care less, actually, whether you're gay or straight or whatever. That, in my opinion, I don't know, maybe I grew up with very liberal parents who were pretty open about a lot of things, but yeah, that was surprising. It was, I was young, And I actually thought that, in fact, the truth is when I left Zen Center and lived outside of Zen Center, and I was shocked how narrow-minded I'd become. And if you live in a community, you can really get very institutionalized in a way and not even know what's happening. It's like that, the story of the frog, that where if you put a frog in hot water and boiling water, it will jump right out. But if you put a frog, this is true, if you put a frog in cold water and turn the heat up slowly, it will stay in there and cook. So we don't even know we're being conditioned and programmed to have certain beliefs. And I was shocked. I thought, God, I thought I was going to be more open-minded. I'd become much more narrow. So it was it took a while to kind of be free of all that programming and conditioning that really wasn't about Buddhism, wasn't really about the truth. It was more about institutional living and keeping a center going and all that kind of stuff. That's another sort of side. Yes?
You mentioned this talk by Allen Ginsberg. Has it ever been transcribed or published?
Well, the thing is, no. And a few of us have heard it again, and I wanted to do something with it and see if we could do something with it, and we'd never, if any of you guys have some idea about it, let me know, because I don't know if it would be in conflict with his archives or whether it would be legally okay to sort of, what to do with it. So it's just my personal recording. And I thought at some point it might be really great to sell it to the archives or tell them that we had it. I don't know. I have no idea what the legal ramifications of something like that are. And we didn't have the resources to find out, so we kind of just let go of it.
You can come and play it here and we won't tape it.
That's an idea, maybe we should have a listening where you don't record it, probably just but that might be really great. That's a great idea. Thank you. That's a wonderful idea.
How long is the talk?
Oh God, I don't remember. I mean, it's just hard to believe what he has to say in there. And he's talking about his lovers, all kinds of stuff. And I don't remember. It's been quite a few years since I listened. We digitalized it. I think did we digitalize it? No. Yes, we did. I think we did turn it into a digital file. I'm pretty sure. I'll check with some of my board members who were working on it back then. Yeah, I checked with Peter Coyote, who was an old friend from Zen Center. He's an actor, and he was very much a part of the beat scene. And I was asking him what he thought we should do, and I don't think he really knew either, because it's tricky with. I know that I don't know who owns Ginsberg's archives. I think it's at Stanford now, isn't it, or somewhere? Does anybody know where his museum is? I thought somebody opened up I don't know where it is. Somebody may be able to know that. I lost track of it. Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe we'll have a special. Hi.
Thanks for your talk, John. Could you say more about bringing it down from the mountain to the marketplace?
In what way would you like me to speak about that?
I don't know. It's just something that I've been centered on myself, starting when I would, in my 20s, I took LSD and had this fabulous mind-expanding experience, and then realized I had to come back down to reality, because I knew it then. And it just seemed, to be the challenge.
Right.
You have an awakening, but you still have to drive your car and earn a living.
Right.
Be in relation with other people.
Right. What's your name again?
Hal.
Hal, of course. Sorry. Well, I hear a lot today, especially because a lot of people are doing ayahuasca and various things that are, I think, in many ways helping them have experiences that are really outside the sort of normal reality realm. So I think these kinds of, altered states, as it were, can be not necessarily, can be also a negative. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just simply saying that they can be helpful for people to have a glimpse or an experience that can be very healing and profoundly opening. But the truth is, then you find out how to really realize it and embody it. So I would say that the beginning of that is to learn first how to just be present, how to be more literally, fully alive. Not self-consciously present, But really, and some meditation practice can help that, breathing awareness practice can help that, coming on a retreat or coming to, groups like this where there's a heightened energetic presence in the space can begin to cultivate that energy, that presence that you are, and after a while it becomes more and more available. And a lot of my work is just helping people recognize that fundamental essence that they are, because when it's being perceived consciously, as you know how, and it's literally amplified in this kind of environment. So someone, and my teacher said to me, this is it, you get it, you get what this really is, this presence. And as you can begin to follow that and allow it, more and more it becomes what you are until it is completely what you are. And that's how it happens. So people can often access spiritual consciousness in a limited way. So they say, well, I feel it when I'm with you, or I feel it when I'm meditating, or I'm on a retreat, but when I'm at work, I'm shut down, and I'm reactive, and all this other stuff. And my response to that is, okay, no problem. I said, eventually that will change, but don't try to change it there. It will those defensive patterns naturally will become less and less who you are identified with as you become more aware of awareness. It's a natural transformation. It's a natural unfolding of the spirit, no different than the growing and flowering of a rose, really. It's totally natural. We get in the way with all of our beliefs, with what we've heard, because, Sally, Dick, and Jane's enlightenment was that way, and we're supposed to have that Kundalini acid, blah, blah, whatever. And we think, how come I'm not having that? What's wrong with me? Is this the wrong life? Is this the wrong karma? Is this the wrong teaching? We doubt ourselves, we question ourselves, but when you can come into contact with a clear field, with someone who has no agenda really about it, and can just help you see who you really are, then you follow that light within. That's what I mean. The teaching is within. And then you begin to learn to trust that natural opening process, which is also healing and integrative. So your personal self literally becomes transmuted. It doesn't mean that your personality now is all of a sudden lily white and sanitized. You may still be quirky or whatever, however you are. We're all unique in that way, right? But you're not caught in it. You understand? Yeah. It's not suffering anymore. Suffering is struggling and resisting with what is. But freedom is being a human being but not caught in it. Is that helpful?
Oh, very much.
Okay, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. We don't have a lot of time now. Yeah, hi.
You brought up the whole question of being gay at the first of your talk. And I've always thought that being gay was sort of beside the point.
Yeah, exactly.
I told my mother I was gay when I was 12. And then,
how old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah,
now I'm 68.
Right on.
And 3 years ago I asked her, I said, what did you think about when I asked you, I told you I was gay? And she said, oh, well, I thought you'd get over it. And I said, well, what do you think about it now? She said, I still think you're going to get over it.
That totally makes my point.
But for me, the whole label of gay always seemed to get in the way because I could never figure out if I was a top or a bottom. And, I always thought that I had a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And it had to do more with gender, gender and things like that. Mm-hmm. That seemed to be thrown at us all the time. Mm-hmm. And I look at the gay community and sometimes feel like we're stuck in this gay thing. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like a curse in a way because it's taking us away from what's really there.
It can be. It can be a limitation. It can be. Right. I totally understand what you're saying and I agree with you, actually. I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Can I share kind of we don't have a lot of time, but just to give you, my parents are both gone, but they had a good sense of humor. And at one point I said to them, I said, Mom and Dad, I said, you know, the advantage of being a gay man is you not only have a dick, you also have a pussy. And she goes, see, Norm? She said that to my father. I said, I said, I'm going to write a book called The Happy Asshole. And they thought that was really funny.
And on that note... Thank you, John.
Thank you. Oh, can I just put in one quick?
Please.
I put some materials out there on the table if you're interested. There's some cards you can take if you're interested in, you know, kind of what I'm doing and what's available. And there's a couple of sign-up sheets there. If you're curious, you can check it out. So feel free to take one of those cards if you like. And maybe I'll see some of you guys again at some of my things. So, really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me back. And
thank you.
May you all be well and happy.
I quickly got on this so we don't have any current newsletters because I wanted to see what was happening next week. For next Sunday, February 19th is an open discussion. So we'll have, I'm sure, a good topic and a great discussion. Please come for that if you can. As always, our host will be passing a Donna Bowl. Donna is the Hollywood for Giving. And the suggested donation today is $10, but please feel free to give what you can. Anything is always greatly appreciated. It covers all of our expenses here in this beautiful space. And with that said, can we hear from our host today?
I am your host. I am your gay host. Let's see. I'm going to be passing around the Donna Bowl, and I will be persuading you to put $10 in there. And then there's also a sign-up sheet if you want to get emailed information on ongoing events. There is hot water for tea that you can make for yourself, and then when you're finished with your tea, you can put it in the sink and I'll take care of it. And currently there are people that leave at the door after this meeting that go out to lunch. And so if you're interested in that, you might want to check that out.
Great. Thank you. Sir.
I'm your treasurer, and I have a brief summary of last year's finances. If anyone's interested, check with me afterwards. We're pretty much the same as the year before. Remarkably, the total amount that we get and the total amount that we spend is it's amazing how close they come each year.
Great. Michael?
GBF is hosting a day-long retreat right here at the Gay Buddhist Center. It's Saturday, March 25th. The teacher is Heather Sundberg. She's a Spirit Rock teacher and a friend of GBF's. And the theme is celebrating community, generosity, and gratitude. There is no registration fee. This is a gift from the Sangha to you. We do ask that you contribute generously for Heather's teaching. The number of participants is limited to the capacity of this room, so I recommend that you register soon. And these flyers are located to the right where the newsletters are. There's a link here that will take you to online registration. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be in the social line up there. Thanks.
See any other announcements? So we have Josh and Dan. A couple of folks came in a little bit later. Is there anybody else here for the very first time joining us today?
Hi, I'm Claudio, and it's not exactly my very first time, but let's just say it is.
Well, I hope Claudio and Josh and Dan can stay for the social hour, so hang out with us. Thank you for today. Let's go ahead and stand for the dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you, gentlemen, for today.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.